All right, we're on the road. It is S&L, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. The Texans got a much needed bye, and that didn't stop us from watching football, and it definitely didn't stop us from localizing. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on all platforms from Apple to Spotify. Subscribe to the new YouTube channel. We surpassed 1,000 in just less than 4 days. So all is right with that. Thank you very much to everyone
Yes,
uh,
thank you.
who who got in on that. We're going to go live there actually today at 4 and 4 throughout the week. And we got a special event, live event planned for you this weekend. So get in on the S&L YouTube channel. It's in the description. So I wanted to get into the localized bye week thoughts because I got some good, some bad, some just random as hell. But when you watch football and the Texans were not involved, um, what was it like for you? Did you stay away? Did you look at it a little bit differently? Like what was it like for you personally, Cody, watching the bye week without the Texans?
The biggest thing that jumped out to me from the bye week is just how disgusting that Titans game was from a couple of weeks ago. I mean, they got the dead cat bounce of the Tennessee Titans. Right when they're getting ready to fail and fall off for the rest of the season, the Texans got the best of the absolute best from the Tennessee Titans. They scored 30 points against the Texans in that game. They scored 25 points the past couple of weeks since that Texans game. They're awful. Will Levis is terrible. And the other thing from that game was Mac Jones did not march up and down the field on the Tennessee Titans anywhere close to the way he did against the Texans in the second half last week or 2 weeks ago or last week. It was last week. And so it's like, I'm watching that game, two really crappy teams, AFC South. I'm like, how in the hell did the Texans lose to this Titans team? And then I'm thinking to myself, how the hell did Mac Jones march up and down the field for half a football game against the Texans defense? It was kind of maddening to watch those teams be that bad. And it's like, hey, you know what? It's the AFC South. Those teams clearly get up for the Texans games. You didn't game plan for Mac Jones, however much that matters when he came in. But that was one of the things from that early slate of games that just kind of jumped out to me. I'm just like, man, these two teams stink. The Texans have played the Jags close twice, and the Titans beat them. And it's like, that one just kind of stuck with me a little bit as I watched. Those weren't a main screen team, but you see it pop up every now and then. Like, man, those two teams stink.
Oh, man, I bet on the Titans, so I got what I deserved there. I mean, I just figured maybe they could beat the Jags by 3. I mean, the Jags admitted they were trying to lose earlier this week,
Yeah.
which is hilarious. The the biggest takeaway for me for that, and this is my first one, is the Titans really treated the Texans game like their Super Bowl, and that's sad for a number of reasons because normally when someone says that, a lot of times it's just being condescending, and a lot of times it's not even true, or it's like a small college beating a big time college. But the Texans aren't the type of team that you beat them and that like makes your season. Like they're not there yet. And quite frankly, in the NFL, no one should be. But everything from the owner crying the night before to getting a game ball to the way in which the Titans played and the way that they've played since, like there was talk out of Tennessee that, man, maybe this is the start of something. Maybe we're really starting to turn around. Maybe we're starting to play some really good football. Maybe Will Levis might be the guy. Did you see how he looked against the Texans and how he looked before that? And my goodness, he's back to being Gosh Allen. And you watch the Titans, they had a first and goal from the 3 and ended up turning it over on downs. And it was one of the sloppiest games. I can't believe I punished myself by actually putting money on it. But again, you get what you deserve. But my number one thought from that, as we localize it, is that they really treated beating the Texans like their Super Bowl, all the theatrics and the actual manner and the quality in which they played football.
I
Disgusting.
Yeah, it was some really ugly football from them. It was ugly football from the Texans when they played those two teams. But hey, you beat the Jaguars before the bye week. Maybe hopefully you figured some things out from that. I watch a lot of offense. I'm paying attention to these offenses and I'm seeing how easy some of the stuff is. And that's kind of what I really paid attention to. And then I got to looking around at the big numbers across this week of action, and I started to really think about these teams And Landry, I went through this. The top 8 passers from Sunday, the top 8 passers, 6 out of 8 of them are either McVay or Shanahan calls the offense, or a McVay or Shanahan guy calls the offense. 6 out of 8. The other 2 were Josh Allen, who's a freak, and then Aaron Rodgers, who's going to go down as one of the best quarterbacks ever. And so 6 out of the 8 teams have the Shanahan tree, the McVay tree, or they have Shanahan or McVay in this one. And that gave me a little bit of hope for the final 4 games. Yes, it kind of stuck with me a little bit in like a negative way about how, man, San Francisco's missing this and missing that, missing this and missing that, and they still got it going on offense. And some of these other teams are missing this and that, and they got it going on offense. But it also gave me hope, like, this offense should be able to move the ball with ease, keep you in games, and allow you to go toe-to-toe with some big-time opponents.
It's hilarious. I'm laughing. It is S&L, by the way. I'm on the road. Cody Stoots is holding it down there in H-Town, but S&L continues. We're going to be live at 4. We got something special for you this weekend. Subscribe to the S&L channel. We're over 1K. But we didn't even talk before we did this. I said, you give me your ideas, I'll give you mine. And I'll just pull up the banner that I already had. It was a good week for the DeMeco pipeline. And I consider McVay part of the pipeline as well. But if you just look at the wins in which those coaches had, McVay puts on almost a clinic against the Buffalo Bills. I mean, this was a Buffalo Bills team that they had their full strength offense. I mean, they were playing better than anyone in the league, and they went out there and they got the job done. Even Mike McDaniel, the Jets stopped the run and those intermediate threats. We'll get to that in a second. But Waddle was 1 yard short of 100. Tyreek Hill had over 100. They got Achane involved in the pass game when he wasn't running effectively. And Jonnu Smith continues to be one of like pleasant surprises for fantasy football people this year. So you had the McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan. Everybody's kind of crapping on San Francisco. San Francisco is a joke, and they're only 3.5-point favorites or 4-point favorites against the dog-butted Chicago Bears after they fire their coach, and they just come out and make the statement of all statements, down to their 4th running back now, I think.
Yep.
You go down the pipeline, like the pipeline of DeMeco Ryans, like it was a very, 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 very good week for that pipeline. Don't know what to make of it, but it's just kind of an observation. Like you say, it gave you hope. I don't know what to make of it, really, other than just the fact that it was a good week for it.
It gave me a little bit of hope, and then it kind of worried me a little bit too, because Tua and the Dolphins, they do all that with 2 pass catchers, and then their running back can do it all. San Fran does it with 2 big-time pass catchers, and then their running back for most of the game, Garindo, left with the injury. He can do it all. And it's like the Texans don't have 2 pass catchers. They got 1. They got Nico. Hank hasn't lived up to that level this season. Dalton Schultz and whatever the tight end position is, that's not been consistent to like the level that anywhere close to the level that Kittle is, but just consistent enough that you call it pass catcher too. So like that's what worried me a little bit, but also, okay, this is also this type of offense, like from this tree and the offshoots from it, like it supports your quarterback plays well, you block it up, and the guy will find the receivers. It will find guys open. And I hope that the grease board got nice and dirty in the bye week from Bobby Slowick, and he was out there dialing it up, drawing it up, and getting it ready. Put it in this week, get it ready to run against this Miami Dolphins team that's coming to town.
Yeah, and I think the craziest thing is, and I don't want to, I don't want to think about this too much, but could you imagine what it'd be like if the Texans were down to their 3rd running back or 4th running back? Like what it what it would look like? Like we saw it with the number 2. Like it's a nightmare thinking about the 2, but just the way in which they were still able to run the ball, and really they've ran the ball. I mean, for as much as they missed Christian McCaffrey, I mean Mason was doing a pretty good job when he got the opportunity. So it's been interesting. And then you go to McVay when Gurley went down that 1 year and Anderson was like a stud in the playoffs. it's kind of one of those things where you hope that as the offense evolves with the Texans and maybe Bobby Slowick gets more comfortable, or maybe DeMeco Ryans figures out that Bobby Slowick isn't the guy and he brings someone in, that you're not just dependent on your top end guys and the offense still functions whenever those guys are out.
That was always, to me, like, that was always like one of the big selling points from the Shanahan style, was like you could plug some guys in and get a level of success. Tell you what's really impressive to me is, and I know we kind of had this little turn mid-season, the McVay guys. I mean, your top two passers this week, or from Sunday, are Darnold and Cousins. And Cousins have been playing terrible. But Liam Cohen, the former Kentucky guy that worked with McVay, obviously KOC in Minnesota has just turned Sam Darnold into a competent quarterback. Like, and
Hey,
and again,
Give Josh McCown some credit too. Give Josh McCown some credit.
yeah, I guess he's up there, isn't he? Yeah, that
He's
is.
the QB coach.
There
He's
you
the
go.
QB coach.
Yeah, but again, it's Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. The Falcons one is like Ray McLeod. Okay, like Hank could be Ray McLeod. Like, so that's what I like. I watch a lot of the offense. I want to see how easy it looks. I want to see how well these quarterbacks handle some of the things that defenses throw at them. And then a lot of times too, and I thought Brady was really good with this during his game, talking about how much freedom quarterbacks are allowed at the line to really kind of take it down to the last couple seconds of the play clock and put the right play in. And that's something that I wonder if, okay, are you getting that out of CJ? Can you give that to CJ? Does he always do that the correct way? That may be one of those things that kind of helps push them back onto track offensively as well.
Hey, what if Josh McCown's the next OC for the Texans?
Okay, let's
I'm
see.
just kidding.
Why not? Why
I
not?
mean, he's I mean, he's in the system. They've loved him forever.
How many
He's
QB
doing a
coaches
pretty good job.
How many QB coaches are doing a better job with their guy than Josh McCown is doing with the guy that they didn't even want to start this year? I mean, yeah, he maybe started a little bit, but they were going to go to McCarthy at some point.
And
Like,
they have O'Connell. I'm just saying that he's in the system now. He's in the system now. He's going to be an OC pretty soon. What if Josh McCown ended up here the third time around? That would be so hilarious.
we're going to put together and we're going to cover it better than anybody this offseason if they move on from Bobby Slowick, which I would tell you that most of us believe today that they would, unless things change drastically in the final four of the regular season and the playoffs. But he'd be on the list, and he'd be
No,
near the top of the list.
it's funny because I was driving the McCown train. It was kind of a bit at the time, but I was like the biggest McCown supporter that there was. And my whole thing was, I didn't mean to turn this into a McCown thing. I just think I mean, if you're the QB coach for Sam Darnold and you were already kind of respected, and the first time that I started thinking that Josh McCown was going to be a coach was 2016 when I was in Cleveland. I asked Hugh Jackson, and Hugh Jackson said, yeah, he pretty much is a coach right now. And he's been on every team in the NFL, every system. Nobody says anything bad about him. He's basically was a coach on the back end, and then he wanted to see his son graduate. So he put off the coaching, went to Carolina. That was obviously a disaster because the whole Frank Reich thing was a disaster, and that organization kind of sucks. Although Bryce Young's kind of playing good too. If we want to talk about some other localized stuff, he's starting to play some good ball. But he goes to Minnesota, and I guess he's doing a pretty good job. So I would think that now we kind of see McCown hype going back up now, and it's not looked at as a joke like it was when the Texans were entertaining it.
Well, you know why? Because he's been in the NFL and he's got some experience and he showcased some stuff. And I mean, look, you're going to have reservations anytime you're plucking an offensive guy from a situation where the head coach is the offensive mind, but it's worked at enough places that you'd say, oh, okay, like I'm excited to see this guy run my offense and see what he brings to the table. They should absolutely consider it if it gets to that point this
No,
offseason.
I think it's his next step. I think he's on a fast track. He always was on a fast track. He just delayed it because he wanted to see his son in high school and the Texan stuff and all that. I mean, you just look at how all that whole coaching cycle has gone.
I
Uh,
would
it's
I would
nuts.
I would also say too, it might be hard to go within the Shanahan tree if you fire a Shanahan tree guy. Maybe those guys don't want to replace their buddy or their friend. Maybe you need to go to the McVay tree or a new tree for the offense.
Who knows? It's a thought. I did not expect
I,
things to go
I didn't expect
there.
us to be talking about week 14 of the NFL turning into a Bobby Slowick's getting fired conversation, but here we are.
Well, hey, the Bobby Slowick's getting fired conversation is like one of the most popular thing in the comments. And shout out to everyone in the comments. We'll be live at 4:00. It is S&L. But the McCown thing, I did not think was going to happen again. I might have to whip out that McCown train thing again.
You got to get you a train sound. Choo, choo.
No, I already have it. I have the Godfather. We played it. We played it throughout the show. The McCown train. It was
There you go.
people were pretty upset by it.
There you go.
So the next bye week thought, and this is kind of connected because I know we've been talking about the offense a lot. And this goes back to Bobby Slowick. Poor Bobby catching strays. He can't even relax. Like he comes in just getting strays. But it's kind of amazing. You look at these AFC playoff teams, and they can actually function when they don't have their top wide receiver. Like they can at least resemble like the offense that they had before. And I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers with George Pickens. They were able to still do their thing. And the Chargers actually went toe to toe with the Chiefs, and their offense, which has kind of been stagnant the last couple of weeks. Their offense kind of picked it up a little bit, and they pushed the Chiefs down to a last second clank win off of the goalpost. So it's interesting that these good teams in the playoffs don't look completely lost when their top wide receiver is out.
Well, look, I think there's a lot that you can point to from an experience standpoint, and some of these coaches handling it and having experience with it, having quarterbacks that have experience with it as well. I mean, we're talking about guys that have missed their top receiver. Herbert's guys were always hurt, so he knows how to play without his top guy. Russell Wilson, he's had guys miss in the past. Tomlin knows how to handle that. You brought up the Chargers thing. Ladd McConkey didn't play. He was 74% of the receiving yards last week. And then they like you said, they went toe to toe. They had one of their backup guys ready to go, slid him into McConkey's spot, and Palmer had a really nice night for them. It's something that good teams and really good quarterbacks survive. It's something that they survive, and it's not always that they thrive, but they can survive with it for a 1 week, 2 week little stretch. Whereas the Texans, they had a really hard time surviving when Nico was down. And certainly once Diggs went down, that they had a very hard time surviving. So, look, I think there's a lot of experience that goes into that. I think there's a lot of experience from the coaching staff and the quarterbacks, but there's also just the offense can operate without having to have that one guy too.
Final thought, and I want to weigh in on like the game of the game of the weekend and the Buffalo LA shootout. I have 3 thoughts on that game because it was a hell of a game, and full attention was dedicated because there was no Texans going on and there was no Texans post, so you got to sit down and watch the game. Thought number 1, Sean McVay's just a savant when it comes to just being able to battle like in every phase of a football game. Like I know that he's an offensive guy, but they just are so prepared everywhere throughout. I mean, they had the pump block today, which was the difference in the game. The defense just they know how to make a team that is just completely humming look lost at times. I know Buffalo made it interesting at the end. And the offense, I mean, it's just incredible to watch when Sean McVay gets in a big game and people aren't giving him much of a chance, and he just goes out there and puts it all together. So that's thought number 1. I guess you can kind of connect that to the pipeline indirectly. The other one is I know that the Texans, like if they decided the playoffs like they do in college football, which would be ridiculous.
I actually had this thought. I was like, committee would be fun in the NFL.
No, but if they did, then it would have to be mentioned that this Buffalo team that the Texans beat is not the one that it was out there today and the one that we've been seeing lately. And I know, and again, this is just because you get to pay more attention to it and you kind of see it. But Shakir is a mofo now. He's become a baller, and they didn't have Amari Cooper either. So I
And they
I,
didn't have
I do
Von
think
Miller.
it's yeah, they didn't have Von Miller and they didn't have a lot of guys on defense. And I know that the Texans lost Nico Collins in the first half, and I think the defense is going to be really good. Um, but this is definitely not the same squad.
You're not holding Josh Allen to, what was it, 9 of 30? 9 of 30 for 131 and a touchdown. Yeah, you're not holding Josh Allen to that if you meet the Buffalo Bills again in the playoffs. Which, the way it's kind of shaken out, if you're meeting the Buffalo Bills, it's the AFC Championship game. So if you beat the Buffalo Bills again, you'd probably be pretty happy with it. But you're not holding him to 9 of 30 for 131 again. It's just, some of those throws, like, just, he's like, bleep it, somebody's down there, boo, and he just rockets that thing. Just like, man, just cuts loose and cuts loose, and it's right in the guy's breadbasket too. And I don't know if anybody's playing better football than him right now. He's a
No, and
freak.
then when he starts running, it's just like, good Lord, this is trouble. The other thing about it is, and again, always watching through localized lenses, they're a much different team on the road than they are at home. Like it's I mean it's a lot scarier thinking about having to go there because their play doesn't really drop off. Like they still play that same type of style and they're able to do it like in that cold weather that makes most people miserable. So that's the other thought is that they just really Buffalo that's not the same team that the Texans faced, and having to face them in Buffalo is tough because at least you can make them look somewhat human on the road. So we'll see. I mean, it'll be a good problem to have. Like, look, if the Texans face the Buffalo Bills again, then great,
In the
that's
AFC
awesome,
Championship game, that'd be incredible.
right? So it might not even matter, but it's just kind of an observation. Final observation. The Miami Dolphins. So the Miami Dolphins right now, the Texans are opening as a 2.5 point favorite against the Miami Dolphins. Um, I am very, very interested to see what their intermediate passing game looks like against the Texans safeties and the linebackers without Aziz, because they say matchups make fights. I think this matchup can favor the Texans because they are coming off that bye and they are fresh. And the New York Jets, say what you want about them, it's not a fun place to play, and it's not really a fun team to play when you're on offense. Like it's not fun to play the next week. So the Texans have a significant advantage being rested. But if we're just talking about the strengths and weaknesses, man, that the thought of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle like lining up, one on the outside and one in the slot, and then Jonnu Smith on the opposite side, and then Achan coming out of the backfield, and Mike McDaniel trying to figure out what the hell he wants to do and how he wants to work those guys, and then really like hanging by a thread to even hang in the postseason. Although the two teams ahead of them play this week, Indianapolis and Denver, and then Denver has to play the Chargers, who are also ahead of them. So maybe they can convince themselves they have a chance. But it is it's the good news is DeMeco's a really, really good defensive mind, and you just mentioned what he did to Josh Allen, regardless of who did or didn't play. And you feel good about this defense, and they're going to be fresh, and they've shown that they can do well without Aziz out there. But man, I think this is going to be their biggest challenge. As crazy as that sounds, I think this is going to be. And I know you look at the Miami Dolphins and you look at their record and you say this is not a good team. And I think this is DeMeco's biggest challenge of the year on the defensive side of the rock, which I mean that might be all he cares about really. So this is DeMeco's biggest challenge.
This is, I mean, they built this team, and they're not going to have some of the pieces for it, but they built this team to go against teams like the Dolphins. Hey, you got two really good receivers. Okay, we have two really good corners. Lassiter is not as good as Stingley, but Stingley's awesome. So how does McDaniel get those guys away from the corners and attack the guys that can be attacked, like the Murrays, the Jimmies, the linebackers? So that's sort of the first chess move. You mentioned Jonnu Smith. They just basically handed him the rock in overtime and marched down the field. So getting him involved, we've seen tight ends kind of have some pretty solid days. And then they didn't run the ball well against the Jets. The Jets are built a little bit different from a run stopping standpoint than the Texans. Like if Achane's moving and everything's clicking for this offense, and they can kind of wear down those edge rushers, Miami doesn't have good tackles, so that's a big positive for the Texans. But if they could wear down the edge rushers and the defensive line with Achane, then play the Mike McDaniel mismatch game, that really kind of plays into the Dolphins' hands. But I think you think about it like, okay, well, they just plop those guys on the outside, let the edge rushers try to work, and hope that Lassiter and Stingley can handle their own. But that's not what McDaniel's going to do. He's going to move those guys around. He's going to put them in the slot. He's going to get them on Eric Murray, and then it's going to be really tough. The flip side of that is a very immobile Aaron Rodgers threw for over 300 yards against this Dolphins defense, and a couple times when he did get flushed out, he just doesn't have the movement to get away from some of this stuff. And as I watched him try to like hobble away from defenders, I was like, oh, CJ easily gets away from those guys. And so it's like their defense, like it should be a little shootouty, because the defense for the Dolphins is it's nothing to write home about.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, Tua, he is a quarterback where you can make him very uncomfortable. And that has nothing to do with any concussions or anything like that, but you can make him look very pedestrian by pressuring him. And the Texans have the ability, especially right there on the edge, to bring pressure. So I think this is just a really, really intriguing football game. I think this might be the most like intriguing when it comes to just the matchups, the most intriguing game of the season. And then when you factor in just how the Texans on the final quarter of the season are trying to get on the right track, and after that they have to face two of the league's best, like it's one of those games that you would love to have. Um and I just don't. There's a lot of ping pong going on. Like it's not the like what's a weakness you can overcome with your strength, but then you have Mike McDaniel thinking about that, and maybe he's going to start running some screens, or maybe he's going to start, you know, throwing the ball quicker. So I just think this chess match and this battle between McDaniel and DeMeco Ryans is and their background too. I mean, they were together in San Francisco and
Yep.
they have a lot of admiration for each other. I asked McDaniel about that last year when they were there. I think just this whole buildup is going to be a fun one, man, and it's a hell of a way to get back into things after the bye week. I think this is going to be. I know that's going to be it could be a stressful one, could be a great one. Um, but it's going to be a fun game to break down, to cover, and all that.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see. I know the line from D'Amico Ryan's always is, we can't really worry about the other team, what they do. We got to execute with what we do. This is the week to worry about what the other team does. They got a genius over there that calls the offense. They can mix and match and play around with their pass catchers and the running back and make it really difficult for you. This is the week where a little bit of extra on the film, a little bit of extra anticipating, a little bit of extra. Hey, I think he's going to do this, so I'm going to do this, but he knows I know this. So then, the chess match is on probably already. And I bet you if he was dialed in on one game yesterday, DeMeco Ryans was squared in on this one, watching what McDaniel does against the Jets.
Surely not even D'Amico would say, "We worry about what we do, not what they do." This is this is not the game. I don't think he would say that here. Well, maybe he would. Who knows?
I,
He
I,
speaks
I
today.
He will be asked about, hey, because Mike McDaniel, and like that will get asked this week. So it's like, okay, like, is he going to give the stock answer? I won't believe it. This is extra film study week. This is get ready. This is, hey, Matt Burke, did you do your homework assignment? Well, that's okay. I did it anyway because I didn't trust you to do it. Like, this is don't leave the office. It's the study and film week.
All right. Well, it's going to be a fun one. You'll be there. We'll be live at 4. Subscribe to the S&L channel. It's at the top of the comments. Also, we appreciate the over 1,000 that did so in 3 days. We're going to be live there at 4. Throughout the week, we'll be live there at 4. We're also going to be live at 4 on Friday per the usual. And we're just going to continue to grow, continue to do what we're doing. 2 top guys in the digital game, the collaboration that's been going on all year, 100% consistency. Whether I got the Statue of Liberty behind me with a bald eagle or whatever the hell's going on here, we're always going to be live. And when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks, everybody.